Welcome to Realty Talk, where we talk real about real estate. No hype, no selling, just facts. My name is Frank Rodriguez, the manager here at Casa Bella Realty Group. And our goal is to bring you transparent and useful information you can use when making your real estate decisions. Today's KPI is where the rubber meets the road in this series of multi-unit investing because it's return on investment. So if you're doing this or you're planning to do it, today we're going to cover a lot of information, a lot of math. With the spirit, as I've mentioned in previous videos, this is not hyperbole. So I'm not going to make up numbers where they're more attractive because that wouldn't be fair to you. And also, this is a long-term play. There's enough on social media announcing that you can become a millionaire overnight. This is not that video. This is the video for those of you that are investing or planning to invest for long-term benefit, not being short-sighted. Okay, so as I go through the math on the return on investment KPI, before I do so, actually, let me put a disclaimer out. In this video, I will mention a monthly payment dealing with interest rates. I will mention tax benefits. I will mention rental increases. This is not any legal, tax, or even mortgage advice because every scenario is different. So I will advise you to seek out that legal counsel, that tax information from a tax professional, or even do your own research as to what you can do as a landlord. Make sure you speak to an attorney or a trained professional in that field, okay? So taking care of that disclaimer, let's move forward with the return on investment. Now, the return on investment, we have what's called cash on cash return, and that's face value. And then there's the internal return on investment, which is more complex, more in depth, and usually a higher return, not only short term but long term. So we're going to look at both today. And as I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of math. So if you're watching this somewhere where you can't take notes, that's fine. You can hear it, though I will advise you to, come back to the video and write out your notes, follow the math, because that's the best way to learn it. Okay, so let's start with the property that we've been using up to this point, which is the city of Hawthorne here in Southern California. It doesn't have rent control as far as the city goes. It falls under the state rent control, AB 1482. Okay, so that's important to note here because when you're purchasing a property, you want to know that for your internal return on investment because you need to know how much could you increase year after year. Okay, asking price for this property, again, 11 units, 2,950,000. Okay, we've done a lot of work up to this point on previous videos, so I'm going to ask you to go back to those videos if you haven't watched them so you know how we got to this point. Okay, now with the NOI on this property currently is 122,125. Again, let me repeat that. 122,125. That's important to know. Okay, so I'm giving you the figures. And for this scenario and this property, 2,950,000, from my experience as an investor, as well as working with a lot of investors, usually someone doesn't wake up and all of a sudden go shopping for a multi-unit property at this price point of $3 million. Usually they've gone to maybe one or two, and maybe this is their third replacement property doing exchanges, right? And we're going to keep that in mind for this scenario. Okay, so if they're not paying for this property cash, usually they're doing anywhere between minimum 50% down, because let's suppose it's their second investment property, and they continue exchanging up. And that's the whole idea. If you remember the game Monopoly, right? Buy houses, get into units, right? Then hotels, I guess. In this case, maybe this person started with a 4-unit property or even a 3-unit property, exchange that property into maybe a 6 to 8-unit property, and now they're exchanging that property into this one, which is 11 units. So they may be coming from selling their relinquished property, their current property in the exchange, maybe anywhere between 1.6 to 1.8. That's kind of the price point for those type of units here in LA County. Now, figure out your numbers wherever you may be watching this video from as far as the escalation part. But we're going to use that as an example. Okay, so they're selling the property, and let's say they're netting 1.5, 1.6 million. Now they're taking that money, those proceeds, and exchanging into this property. The reason I bring all this up is because part of the ROI, cash on cash return, that we need to figure out is the debt service. Okay, so the formula is this. Okay, and I'm going to give it to you here. It's figuring out their NOI minus the debt service equals the ROI. Okay, let me repeat that. NOI, net operating income, minus debt service, which is the monthly payments, right, equals ROI. Okay, that's the formula. So let's start with the NOI on this particular property. Now that we established that this person in this scenario is giving over 50% down, their debt service roughly at 6% for commercial financing. It's a debt service of $106,116. Okay, that's the debt service per year. We take their NOI, which is $122,125 on this property, NOI, subtract the debt service, $106,116, gives us $16,009 for the year. Now, some of you may be thinking, wow, that's not that much money, right? 16,000. At face value, it isn't, because the return on investment cash on cash is just a little over 1%, considering that they gave 50% down plus their closing costs, which are probably like 1.5 million out of pocket, right? Or a little over. So their cash on cash return, making 16,000 cash flow per year, it's a little over 1%. Nothing to write home about, nothing to celebrate. Though remember, we talked about the internal return on investment, right? That changes the numbers a bit. Okay, so let's start with this. We know if there's no city rent control, and if you're dealing or negotiating properties in city-specific rent control, make sure you know the numbers. Again, it's very important. Okay, if this property, which it does, falls under the state rent control, we know the minimum that the rent could be increased. It's 5% plus CPI under the state, AB 1482. So let's just round that up to 7.5%. Okay, annual increase for now. If we fast forward 3 years from now, this person bought this property, again, cash on cash, a little over 1%, nothing to write home about, as I mentioned. 3 years from now, considering year 2, the rents increase to $226,784. You got to go back to the previous video to understand that. And then year 3, the adjusted gross rents are now $243,657. Okay, let's suppose that the operating expenses stay relatively the same. It's good management. Now the NOI, year 3, the NOI, we're looking at 46,000. No, excuse me. The NOI 3 years from now is 152,000 2.836. Okay, I don't expect you to like really catch on to these numbers just yet. Capture the concept and then do your own math either on this property or any other properties you may come across, or contact us and we'll help you walk through the numbers. But let's say three years from now, the NOI on this property, because the rents have gone up each year in California right now, no city rent control, 7.5 average, okay, each year. Year three, the NOI is now 152,836 minus the operating expenses. Now the cash flow is 46,720. Now, still doesn't make too much of a difference on the cash flow. We're looking at from the original money given, cash on cash return is like 3.2, 3.3%. Again, nothing too outrageous. Again, this is long-term play. Though catch this, if you understand how cap rates work, if we keep the same cap rate as when this property was purchased 3 years prior, which is a little over 4% cap rate, this property would now be worth $3,820,900. So pretty much almost 3.9 million. Okay, it was purchased at 2.950. So if you do the math, it's 800, a little over 870,000 that the price of this property has gone up in 3 years, because it's based on the rentals. And the rentals will define the cap rate if you're following along. And at 4 to 4.5 cap rate, again, no city rent control, this property could be sold 3 years from now if the seller, the owner of this property, decided to do another exchange, could be put on the market for 3.8 million. Okay, that's a significant gain. And if we divide that into 3 years, the difference, a 870,000 gain, that's roughly $290,000 per year, right? Some people trip on pennies, right? They focus on the small things and not focus on the big things. Someone might say to this individual, oh, you're only going to make a little over 1% per year on your money. You're better off putting that into a money market account or another type of investment. Though I'm the type of person that I can be biased to real estate. I like to be in control. And if I know I can go in there and manage that property, reset it where I need it to be, can do the rental increases per year as allowed by the law, and I know that property can be worth 3.8 million 3 years from now, and I'm paying 2.9 today. My cash flow, again, is not going to make too much of a difference, right? From 1% to a little over 3% per year. Though the value of the asset has increased almost $1 million, right? That's a big gain. That's a big gain, okay? Now, along with that gain, of course, other internal return on investments are things such as my tax benefits. Okay, if you're a high earner, W-2, I think we know you're paying the most tax there is. If you're a professional making over 120, 130,000 a year, these tax benefits are essential because you can write off a lot of repairs. You can write off all the interest, taxes. You can write off depreciation. And if you work within your portfolio a certain amount of hours per year, there's no cap. The government could be paying you instead of you paying the government. Now, it may not sound politically correct to say that, though it's true. That's why they say the wealthy continue to get wealthy. It's not by cheating, it's by being smart and using the tax benefits and the strategies of investing to your benefit. So don't feel guilty for that. And if you're watching this and you're thinking, no, the wealthy should be paying more tax, don't get upset. as we say, don't hate the player, right? They're just playing the game, right? I think that's what the saying goes. Learn to play the game. Learn to play the game. Okay, so uh, a lot of numbers, a lot of different concepts discussed in today's video. The return on investment as the KPI, though. Regardless if you followed along or not, or if you understood the concepts, I'll ask you one question just to really hit this point home as far as the KPI return on investment. Do you think if people were losing money by investing in multi units, would real estate be that one game in investing that so many professionals, athletes, actors, attorneys, doctors, real estate people, so many people, would they continue investing in real estate? Of course not. So the proof is there. Again, this is not to sell you to invest in real estate. This is not even to sell you on an ROI. Though I do mention this because if you're watching this video, maybe you're watching it for the right reason. You're in the game now. You're looking to improve your game. Or maybe you're watching this video to understand a bit more of the investing side of in real estate. I encourage you to continue. Don't give up. Okay, you don't have to start with the $2.9 million property. You could start today with something maybe that's worth 700, 800,000 and move up gradually, understanding on how to do that legally and strategically. Okay, so hope you enjoy the video. Go back to it if you fully want to understand the formulas, or reach out to us and we'll be happy to go over a scenario with you.